This is George. He was a good little monkey, and always very curious. Today, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, joined Mrs. Gray and her class on their field trip to the fire station. The fire chief was waiting for them right next to a big red fire truck. Fire truck. FIRETRUCK. Welcome, he said, and he led everyone upstairs to begin their tour. There was a kitchen with a big table, and there were snacks for everyone. The fire chief told them all about being a firefighter. George tried hard to pay attention, but there were so many things for a little monkey to explore, like that shiny silver pole in the corner. Where did that pole go? George was curious. Why, it went back downstairs. There was the great big fire truck. There was a map of the city, and there was a whole wall full of coats and hats. And in big black boots. George had an idea. First, he stepped into a pair of boots. Next, he picked out a helmet. And finally, George put on a jacket. He was a firefighter. Suddenly, the firefighters, all rushed in. "This is not my helmet," said one. "My boots are too big," said another. Hurry, called the fire chief. A bright red light on the map of the city told him just where the fire was. There was no time to waste. One by one, the firefighters jumped into the fire truck, and so did George. The fire truck with all the firefighters sped out of the firehouse, and so did George. The siren screamed and the lights flashed. The truck turned right, then it turned left. Went the whistle, and George held on tight. And just like that, the fire truck and the firefighters pulled up to a pizza parlor on Main Street. Smoke was coming out of a window. In the back, and a crowd was gathering in the street. "Thank goodness you're here," cried truck and started unwinding their hoses. They knew just what to do. And George, of course, was ready to help. He climbed up on the hose. The hose rail. Sorry again. One of the firefighters saw George trying to help, and he took George by the arm and led him out of the way. A fire is no place for a monkey, he said to George. You stay here where it's safe. George felt terrible. George sat on the bench and looked around. Next to him on the ground was a bucket full of balls. George reached in and took one out. It fit in his hand just right, like the apple he's had for a snack. A little girl was watching George. He tried to give her the ball, but she was too frightened. George took another ball and another. Look, a boy said, that monkey is juggling. The boy took a ball from the cage and tossed it to George, but it went too high. George climbed up onto the fire truck to get it. Smart monkey. Now George had 4 balls to juggle. 4 balls. He threw the balls higher and higher. He juggled with his hands. He juggled with his feet. He could do all kinds of tricks. The boy threw another ball to George. George threw a ball back to the boy. The little girl reached down and picked up a ball too. Soon, all the children were throwing and catching back and forth. The fire chief came to tell everyone that the fire was out. Just then, the little girl laughed and said, "Look, Mommy, a fire monkey." "Hey," called the fire chief, "what are you doing up there?" "What a wonderful idea," the little girl's mother said to the fire chief, "bringing this brave little monkey to help children when they're frightened." "Oh," the fire chief said, "well, thank you." Before long, the fire truck was back at the firehouse, where a familiar voice called, "George." It was the man with the yellow hat. "This little monkey had quite an adventure," said one of the firefighters. "Is everyone all right?" asked Mrs. Gray. My apologies. Again. "Yes, it was just a small fire," said the fire chief. And George was a big help. Now the field trip was coming to an end, but there was one more treat in store. All the children got to take a ride around the neighborhood on the shiny red fire truck, and they each got their very own fire helmets, even George. And it was just the right size for a brave little monkey. And that was the end of it. Curious George and the firefighters. Wait, real quick. I want to see if we could do this maze. So let's see. Oh no. We gotta go another way. Boom. We aced that. We did that. We really did that for real. Alright. Next book. Because I know someone in the comments said that they liked this specific sound, so so excited he could barely eat his breakfast. "You have a big day ahead of you, George," said his friend, the man with the yellow hat. It was a big day for George. It was the first day of school, and he had been invited to be a special helper. George and his friend walked together to the schoolyard. Some of the children were nervous, but George could not wait for the fun to begin. In the classroom, George's friend introduced him to Mr. Apple. "Thank you for inviting George to school today," the man with the yellow hat said to the teacher. Then he waved goodbye. "Have a good day, George. I'll be back to pick you up after school." The children were excited to have a monkey in class. "George is going to be our special helper," Mr. Apple told them. And what a helper he was. At story time, George held the book. At math time, the children couldn't count one. At math time, the children could count one George. And at recess, George made sure everyone had a ball and a well-balanced snack. After lunch, Mr. Apple got out paints and brushes. George saw red, yellow, and blue paint. So the colors were not very many. George was curious. Could he help make more colors? Possibly. Who knows? First, George mixed red and blue to make purple. Next, George mixed red and yellow to make orange. Then George mixed yellow and blue to make green. Finally, George mixed all the colors to make a big mess. The children thought the mess was funny, but Mr. Apple did not. "Oh dear," he said, "we are going to need something to clean this up. Everyone please sit quietly while I look." George did not mean to make such a mess, and he certainly did not want to sit quietly. He wanted to help. It was his job, after all. George had an idea. In the hallway, George found a closet. In the closet, he found a bucket. In the bucket, he found just what he needed. A mop. George was on his way back to the classroom when he heard somebody yell, Stop! What are you doing with my mop?" The janitor ran after George. Stop. No running in the halls." The principal ran after the janitor, but George was going too fast to stop. He grabbed the doorway and swung inside, and sploosh. The bucket tipped, the mop chopped, and George slid across the floor. Now the mess was even bigger. Mr. Apple looked surprised. The principal frowned. The janitor just shook his head. And George, poor George, he felt terrible. Maybe he was not such a good helper after all. The children felt terrible too. They did not like to see George looking so sad. They thought he was a great helper. Now they wanted to help him. So the children all lent a hand and some feet. And before anyone knew it, the mess was gone. "That little monkey sure is helpful," the janitor said. "It It looks like Mr. Apple has a whole class full of helpers. The principal added. At the end of the day, when George's friend arrived to pick him up, Mr. Apple said, "Thank you all for your help. Thank you for all of your help, George. We hope you will come help us again." The children cheered. They hoped George would come again too. George waved goodbye to his new friends. What a great day it had been. He could not wait to come back to school. That was the second book. I'm going to read the last and final book. George, Curious George, and the Pizza Party. Okay, that was Bud. I can't do it. Okay, I can't do it, guys. I can't do it. Wait. Ooh. Okay, no, because I don't want to, like, bend the book. Okay. Let's get started. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today he wasn't just curious, he was excited. So excited. In fact, that he was turning flips and standing on his head. A little girl in George's building had invited him to her pizza party. George had never been to a pizza party before, but he loved parties, and he loved pizza, so he knew it had to be good. "George, it's time for the pizza party," said the man with the yellow hat. "Have fun, and remember to be on your best behavior." George got to the party in perfect time. "Hi, George," called out the little girl. But oh, what was all of this? The children were wearing puffy white chef hats and checkered aprons. George got a hat and an apron too. The best was yet to come. They weren't just going to eat pizza, they were going to make it too. Everyone will get a piece of pizza dough to roll out and make a special pizza, explained the girl's mother. There were many little lumps of dough. But first, let's play some games. Yeah. Everyone went into the living room to play pin the pepperoni on the pizza. Everyone, that is except George. He was curious about those pieces of dough. George thought if lots of little pieces of dough were good, maybe one huge one would be even better. He gathered the lumps of dough together and squashed them until they became the very biggest piece of dough he'd ever seen. What fun! Maybe rolling it out would be even more fun. George poured flour out on a table and he rolled the dough with a rolling pin. It was messy work. First he bumped over one of the chairs. Crash! Then he knocked over the sack of flour. Thump! The flour looked like snow lying on the floor of the kitchen. But George liked snow, though, so he didn't mind at all. Soon he had gotten the dough nice and thin. Okay, my phone's literally going to die. Let me charge it right now. Alright. Okay, so, but the thinner it got, the farther it spread out. Before he knew it, the dough covered the table, then the chairs, then George. Without the flour, it started to stick to everything, including George. George stopped to think. Maybe the dough was better off in small pieces after all. George got a pair of scissors and began cutting up the dough into lots of different shapes. He thought everyone would be pleased. George, what have you done to the kitchen? The little girl's mother didn't look very happy. I think it's time for you to go home now. How sad and surprised George was. Just then, the children burst into this mess quickly, George. I suppose you could still stay to make pizza. The children all helped George clean the kitchen. He was lucky to have so many good friends. As they worked, they talked about the pizza. I'm going to make a pizza that looks like a star, said one little boy. I'm going to make one that looks like a house, said a girl. Once the kitchen was clean, the real fun began. All of the children picked out perfect pieces of dough and got to work. They spooned on tomato sauce and sprinkled on cheese. They added lots of vegetables and pepperoni. The pizza looked wonderful. One looked like a rainbow, another like a stop sign, and still another like a balloon. There was even a pizza that looked curiously like George. Well, George, said the little girl's mother, the pizzas taste great, and thanks to you, they look wonderful too. Everyone agreed it was the best pizza anyone has ever seen or tasted. For the second time that day,